Members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding to receive the Worshipful Mayor of Burnley, Councillor Arif Khan. Thank you.
Please be seated. Good evening. We're going to start the proceeding here. I would like to welcome members to this extraordinary council meeting at the Mechanics Theatre, and thanks our host Burnley Lyer for accommodating us. Can I ask members and members of the public not to talk amongst themselves during the meeting, as this can be very distracting for those who are listening to this debate. Can I also ask everyone to ensure any mobile devices are switched to silent and do not cause a distraction during the meeting. I would remind everyone that the use of mobile devices for the taking or making of phone calls is not permitted in the meeting. I would also remind members that where they are able to, they are required to stand when addressing the council meeting. When you are invited to speak, please wait for the microphone to be brought to you. We are not expecting a fire alarm tonight, but if one should occur, please follow the mechanics staff and officers out of the mechanics theatre to the assembly point in the rear car park to the rear of the town hall. The meeting is being streamed, and I would like to take the opportunity to welcome those watching on the Council's YouTube channel. Finally, members, let us all remember to treat members of the public, elected members, and officers with respect throughout the meeting as set out in the Code of Conduct for members. Item 1 on the agenda, Declaration of Interest. Is there any? No. Item 2 on the agenda, Mayor's communication.
On behalf of the Mayor, I have the following announcements to make. On the 19th of June at 10 a.m. in the Town Hall, the Council will hold a flag-raising ceremony for Armed Forces Week. Councillors, uniformed guests and the MP are invited, and there will be refreshments in the anteroom.
Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, public question time.
We have received a request to speak from Mr. Jonathan Hainley, who is the agent for the Hollins Cross Farm planning application.
Right. Please, Jonathan. Yeah. Mr. Hainley, please come forward, please.
Good evening all. I'm Jonathan Ainley from Savills on behalf of Prospect Homes. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak in favour of item 4 at Hollins Cross Farm on a proposal for 200 family homes. I don't intend to take the full 5 minutes, you'll be pleased to hear. There are a number of wider benefits to this proposal which have been recommended for approval by officers 4 times. The proposal meets and in fact exceeds policy requirements in a number of respects. The main reason I wish to speak tonight is on flood risk, which is the single reason for the referral here. I fully understand this is the absolute key matter for residents and has been for some members of the Development Control Committee. Whilst in our and officers' view we fully meet policy requirements on this, I don't wish to recite those policies to members. Officers have been clear in the reports that the proposal is likely to improve the current flooding situation. No further information is deemed necessary to reach that conclusion definitively by them. Some residents have commented on existing problems. It's worth noting that there is no formal drainage system in place at present, and therefore no control of water. The site is in flood zone 1, i.e. at the lowest risk of flooding, according to the Environment Agency. Prospect has undertaken a raft of technical work, including a flood risk assessment, site investigations, further reports, and extensive monitoring across the year. This extensive work has been checked by the relevant expert bodies, the lead local flood authority, the Environment Agency and the local authority. All concur. There are no flood risk issues and they have no objections. Beyond this, and to further assist members, officers sought an independent report from a specialist engineering consultant on behalf of the Council. I'd like to quote their conclusion to you. Our assessment concludes that groundwater and any associated potential flood risk is not expected to be a significant constraint to development. That report is to assist you, members. There is therefore an overwhelming body of expert opinion and technical evidence that confirms there will be no increase in flood risk whatsoever. For context, Prospect are spending over £3 million on drainage. These are not domestic drains, but massive systems with huge extra overcapacity to cope with climate change and the very rare 100-year flood events. This is a tried and tested approach of attenuating water in huge underground pipes and surface basins before controlled discharge from the site. The proposed basin has been incorrectly described as a pond previously. It will hold only small volumes of water temporarily in heavy rainfall and will quickly dissipate. It will be managed by United Utilities and a management company, which is a standard and tested approach on housing developments across the country. Given all of this, I hope members will agree that we have categorically demonstrated there is no increased risk of flooding. However, to go even further, Prospect has committed to an approach which goes even beyond belt and braces, with the addition of a further condition which requires an expert drainage consultant to verify the basin has been formed as intended and there are no groundwater issues before the adjacent homes can be built. This is in addition to the other standard pre-commencement conditions to be imposed in respect of drainage. Members may question accountability if the development goes ahead. The MD of Prospect Homes is here today and recently organised and attended a public meeting with residents to further listen and understand their concerns and talk through the proposals. The liaising with residents will continue throughout. This isn't just important for Burnley, it's important for us. Any profits Prospect make are gift aided to their parent company Riverside Group, who fund affordable homes. This is a socially responsible company that cares and is committed to delivering a positive legacy. I suspect members may well be asking themselves the simple question, will this proposal increase flood risk for residents? Members can be absolutely confident the answer is no. It will actually reduce flood risk for the reasons I've explained. I therefore hope you will be able to support Prospect's proposals here today. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Andy. You can go back to your seat. Item 4 on the agenda, items for decision by the Council. Members, there are a number of procedural matters to bring to your attention this evening. As Council does not operate in the same way as a committee, in order to ensure that debate is not stifled and that officers can respond to any technical queries in the same way they would at a committee meeting, members have the option to invoke or suspend certain of the Council's procedure rules. I shall set out for you the options, and then it is up to members whether or not they wish to take up those options. Can I point out to members that items for decision by Council are treated as motions. Once a proposal has been moved and seconded, members may speak once, and for a maximum of 5 minutes. Member may then only speak again on an amendment. If members wish to allow the opportunity to speak more than once on an item, you may move and second CPR 22.1 suspension in relation to CPR 14.5. When a member may speak again, which would allow members to speak more than once. If the motion is carried, would any member wish to move CPR 22.1 suspension of standing orders related to CPR 14.5 as outlined above?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move as outlined above. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Yeah. This one? Yeah. Is that seconded?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Well, go to the vote. All those in favor, please show. Okay. All those against? Yeah. Any abstentions? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. This is carried. As members are aware, officers do not routinely speak at meetings of full council. If members would like to take the opportunity to seek points of clarification from officers before we go to the vote, we will need a proposer and seconder to move Council Procedure Rule 13 to allow 13 is that G? Yeah, 13G. Q, to allow officers to actively participate in the meeting when dealing with the development control or licensing determinations which are not policy decisions. Would any member wish to move a motion without notice relating to CPR 13Q, officers' participation in meetings are outlined above? Is that seconded? Oh, sorry. Oh, no, sorry. On the move, yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll move.
Yeah. Is that seconded?
I'll second that motion, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. Thank you.
We will go to the vote here. All those in favor, please show. Yeah. All those against, please show. Any abstentions? Yeah. Okay. That is carried. Now the agenda item, item number 4A, Hollins Cross Farm, Wood Plumpton Road, Burnley. Members have received via their iPads a supplementary public agenda pack for this item, which contains an update report from the planning officer. May I also remind members that all agenda item 7, sorry, they are in receipt of information, sorry, which is, sorry, thank you. May I also remind members that at agenda item 7, they are in receipt of information which is confidential as it is subject to legal privilege. This information is included in the members' private agenda pack. The material contained in it must not be referred to in the public debate. Any member who wishes to refer to this material must first move the exclusion of the public in accordance with the Council's constitution. Council Procedure Rule 19, exclusion of public, and Part 4B, access to information Rule 10.4 and 10.5. I will now open the debate. Any member? Councillor Birtwistle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And could I first off say that it is my belief that this meeting should not be happening. This is not the place to have a debate on development control. The decision to have this as a full council meeting was taken because the officers believed that we were affecting the local plan. This decision tonight does not affect the local plan. The local plan is still in place. The decision to turn it down was because of the ground conditions on the site, not the local plan policy at all. So it is my view that we shouldn't be doing this tonight. The decision was made by DC and should remain with DC, but the decision was made. The residents group, the Hollis Cross group, have taken council's advice, and if the meeting tonight doesn't go the way that they wish it to go, they will be calling for a judicial review on the procedural matters that the council officers took to move this decision from what is a planning decision to what will be a political decision. And that, Mr. Mayor, is wrong and should not have happened. It is a development control decision, and the fact it does not affect the local plan is quite plain for everybody to see. It is purely about the condition of the land. Is the land fit to build on or not? So I'll now, if I can, go on to the planning issues that we have to discuss tonight. Is the land fit to build on or not? The views of the consultant who the Hollis Cross group employed at great expense, many thousands of pounds, concluded that there was a serious possibility that there could be flooding for the houses certainly on Glenview Road and on Higher Rose Hill. There was a definite possibility of that. They could not rule that out. And I have to say, Mr. Mayor, that is a concern for me as a councillor for that ward, and certainly a concern for the residents who live in that area who believe their houses are secure. They checked with their insurance companies, and the insurance companies confirmed that they would not be able to get insurance for flooding if the report from their advisor was correct. That report has been treated with total contempt. I have to say, Mr. Mayor, I think it's a disgrace the way that the officers have treated the report that's cost the residents a lot of money has been treated with contempt, as if it hasn't even been presented. There's no answers being given to the questions that the report mentioned. So there is a chance there could be flooding. There is a chance there could be flooding. And the fact there's a remote chance that it could be flooding is a concern to the residents of that area, a concern of residents who have lived in that area for a long while. And I'm concerned about it for them. I care about those residents. It's plainly obvious that there are few of us in this room tonight who are concerned about that. And I don't want the residents on there to be flooded out and not being able to get insurance for damage. And there's been no suggestion from the developer that they will pay any compensation, or the council will pay compensation for any flooding that takes place following the development of this site. Now, the reason why this was why I was turned down, the only thing that the residents are asking for, which has been agreed by the residents' independent advisor, I've been on development control for nearly 40 years, and every time we argue against something, they say, well, our experts say you're wrong. And we've always accepted that. In this case, we say that the council's experts are wrong. We say they should listen to what the residents' experts have said. And the experts say, to be absolutely clear, that there will be no flooding, that the people who live in those houses will be safe, there should be an overwinter survey taken on that site, that's taken from October through till the spring. Now, the developer has been on that site for over 12 months. The question to ask is, why have they not done an overwinter survey and submitted the results of the survey to the residents' independent advisor and to the council's advisors? Why have they not done that? Now, I'm a cynic, Mr. Mayor. I'm a cynic in things like this. Maybe they know the result. and maybe they don't want the result to become public. But it worries me that this is not being done, and the residents' homes are under threat from possible flooding. Another issue is this pond that's being built there, a large area of water. There is no security around that pond. Not only during this winter, 2 children died very close to here when they went through the ice on a pond and drowned. That pond is big enough for a child to fall in and drown. Is anybody going to hear it in this room? Is the developer going to accept responsibility for the life of a child that falls into a pond that's left open, and there's an area there with 200 houses and lots of children, totally unfenced? Why has there a fence not been put around that pond? Is it because it's part of the planning reason, and if they put a fence round, it won't be part of the environmental survey that's gone on, and they'll have to reduce the number of houses? Is that the reason? If it is, let's have the reason. Tell us the truth. That's all we're here for. We just want to know what is going on. So there's an issue with the flooding. There's an issue with the safety of the pond. And there's also a major issue with the people that live in Hollins Cross Farm and the adjacent barns. How are they going to get to their property when all this is going on? They're digging up the access road to go to it, but there is no provision in the report for the people that live in the farm to get the tractors up there, the HGVs up there with all the goods. How are they going to survive? What's the process? Now, the local plan is quite clear. There has to be no access off Woolpumpton Road. I sincerely hope there isn't a thought going through the minds of the planners, we'll sneak a road in later after all this has gone through, because they'll have to come back to this committee to get planning permission to put a road in off there. So, Mr Mayor, we're not asking for much. I'm not asking for much on behalf of the residents. All we're asking for is this to be deferred until a proper over-winter survey has been carried out. If the survey says there is absolutely no problem at all, there is no reason to believe that there won't be flooding in that area, then we have no reason to object to it, and the site can go ahead with no problem. But if there is an issue where the houses could be flooded, and I was up there during Christmas when we had those massive storms and water was cascading down, not just off this side, from right on the top of the moor, right down through Hollins Cross Farm into the field, and it goes down a hole. The water goes down a hole down there. That goes into a mine shaft that's been there for centuries. When in the old days, I don't know whether there's been a mining survey on this site. They might get a surprise, might the developer, they go and do a mining survey to find the horizontal mine shafts that are there. But water literally cascaded, and there was a cow there that got so stuck in the mud, it was up to its belly to get the fire brigade out to drag it out. And you're telling me there isn't a problem, and they're telling us there isn't a problem with flooding. I have to say, Mr Mayor, I'm a cynic. I don't believe what I'm reading. So all we're asking for, and I will be proposing later, that we defer this again until an overwinter survey is taken to give the residents of the site who live adjacent to this site the comfort to know that at least...
Mr Birtwistle, can you wind up your speech,
Why?
please? You've got 5 minutes to speak anyway.
No. No. Mr Mayor, it is a DC meeting. You can speak as long as you want.
Okay, go on then.
I know you might not want to listen to what I'm saying, and I know you might be getting nods from your group here saying shut him up. But it's a fact.
No.
But it's a fact.
My colleague should take that back because he's out of order there. Not just our group, all groups are involved in this.
No, Mr. Birtwistle, you carry on and please try to wind up here.
No, I'm not. Mr Mayor, I'm telling you, I'm here to represent the people in my ward.
Yeah, I understand that.
You might not be happy with me for doing that, but I'm explaining to you the seriousness of this case. I wouldn't be arguing the case if I'd been on the council for 40 years and on this committee for 35 years. I would not be arguing the case like I am. I am confident that if the proper overwinter survey is done, we will find a definitive reason why there won't be flooding. There either will be or there won't be. And as I said, I will be moving later that the planning is, as the Development Control said, is deferred until this overwinter survey is done, and that the figures from this survey are shown to the experts that the residents have and shown to the council's experts, and then we could come to the definitive conclusion whether there will be flooding or not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Birtwistle.
May I just clarify in terms of the sort of ensuing debate? We suspended Council Procedure Rules 14.5, which allows members to speak twice. Council Procedure Rule 14.4 remains intact, and members may only speak, no speech may exceed 5 minutes without the Chair's approval. So just wanted to clarify that, just if in case there was some inconsistency. There was no timing done. So there was no timing done at the time. So all I'm saying is just wanted to clarify the rule, so I don't necessarily.
You suggested then that with the Mayor's permission people can speak for longer. Would you ask the Mayor whether he's prepared to allow that to happen?
It's my discretion. Yeah. It's my discretion. Yeah. I've got your point, Mr. Baker. Yeah, I've got your point. Yeah. Thank you. So are we going to decide?
So in the future, if you want to, if you want him to speak for longer, you can do it, but we need to time the debates going forward.
Yeah.
So
So
okay.
where are we going next?
Councillor Oscar from Quantity.
Are we going for any member?
Yeah.
Any other member want to speak on this issue, please? Yeah.
Councillor Oscar and then Councillor Fewing.
I'll concede here. Councillor Husker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm also on DC, and I'm also involved in that area where Gordon Birtwistle, Councillor Birtwistle, states. I'm county councillor for that area, and I also have concerns about the flooding issues. And I endorse everything what Gordon said tonight, and I think it was well spoken.
I've got Mr. Councillor Baker here.
I think it was Councillor Fewing.
Councillor Fewing first, and then Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I please just get clarification if you're going to limit me to 5 minutes? Because if you are, I'd like to move a motion without notice to suspend the 5-minute rule on the basis that I don't want to put the council at risk of judicial review by stifling debate.
You can do it. You can put that motion without notice through if you wish.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. Thank you.
You got seconded? Yeah. Councillor Baker seconded. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? No. Yeah, your motion, Mr. Fewing, is carried, yeah, so...
Thank you. Can I speak as well now? Is that okay? I seem very loud. I don't know if that's the case for everyone else. I'm a little bit confused and concerned. I agree with a lot of what Councillor Birtwistle has said. I don't have the background of having been on development control whilst the various iterations has come to that committee, but I have sat on that committee in the past. I'm legally trained and I work in development, so the fact that I'm slightly confused as to what's going on, it does sort of set alarm bells that we're not doing this properly. So normally at a development control meeting, the report is given to us by the officers, and I'm sure everybody's read it, but we have an opportunity to ask questions. So I'm going to proceed on the basis that I can do that, and I'm not limited to talking about the flooding, because this is the first time I've had to consider this, and I'm being asked to approve or not this planning application. So my first question to the officers is to do with ecology. It's not clear to me from what I've read or the papers that I've found on the planning system why there is such a big difference between the developer's ecology appraisal and the appraisals done during the adoption of the local plan. So in the policy HS1-2, which is the policy that earmarks Hollins Cross Farm as a potential development site for housing, it makes it very clear that there are priority habitat being lowland fen and protected species, yet all the ecology data from the developer sort of dismisses any sort of value to the habitat. And so that is essentially, from what I can tell, two conflicting councils, experts saying two different things. So that causes me concern. So for that reason, I looked into the report as much as I could, and I could see that there are protected species that are breeding on the site, like skylark, and unfortunately, the data is not robust. So the skylark breeding season is between April and mid-August, and no surveys were carried out during June, July, or August for breeding birds on this site as part of this application that I can see. So I would welcome further information if I've missed it or there's something that's not been put onto the planning portal, but that gives me great concern that if we pass this application today without the correct information in relation to protected species, we do open ourselves up to judicial review. And I asked at the recent training by King's Chambers, and apologies if it's come through by email because my iPad's not working for my emails since then, but I don't think I've had clarification on it. And my question was, if we have a successful judicial review against the council, will that count towards major applications being dealt with incorrectly and count towards the criteria for special measures? Because I think that is an important point of clarification that I'd like to receive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fewing. Councillor Baker, sorry.
There's a question asked.
Oh, yeah.
He's asking a question of the officer. Does
Oh,
Paul
yeah,
want to answer the question?
So will the officers be answering at some
Yes,
point?
that's what
I've got a lot of questions, so it will confuse me.
Give that Mr. Anley to
Paul.
Respond. Yeah.
To Paul.
Yeah,
No,
go
to
to
Paul.
this.
Paul Gattro. Oh, yeah. Paul, do you want to come to the lectern?
Yeah, so there's been quite a lot of information that's been provided by GMEU, the council's ecologists, and I think it's on page 42 of the report, some of the responses. But I think generally it would be the condition that's attached. I think it's the condition 27, 28, 29 of the report that would ask for sort of additional survey work and additional information prior to the development and during the development. And I think that, from an officer's point of view, would answer that question, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Gattro. Yeah. So, Mr. Baker is your, and then Mr. Chowdhury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Baker. My questions are, well, something along the lines of my colleague over there, Councillor Fewing's. Problem with this is, for myself, is on the ecology side, amazingly enough. I don't really claim to be an ecologist. But first of all, going back to the flood bit, first of all, I wonder if the officer can clarify his bit in his report, where he says, let me find it. I've I'm bad as Paul, I'm afraid. They don't immediately spring to mind, do they? Basically, we said that the council had asked for, I think it's Sweco, to do a report on, which has been offered as evidence as against the residents' report. Now, I'm also a little bit cynical, like Councillor Birtwistle, in these things, and I often think he who pays the piper calls the tune. Now, in the pack that you sent out, we've also got a copy of a letter from the managing director. I think he's a managing director, it could be chief executive. Managing director of Prospect Homes. And it's the 5th paragraph from the bottom on page 116, where it says, Burnley Council instructed an independent assessed position of the flood risk by Sweco. Then it says, Prospect supported the Council's decision to undertake this assessment, provided all requested information and covered all associated costs. And tonight, the public speaker from Savills stated that the report was undertaken at the request of Prospect Homes. Could the officer clarify who paid for this report?
Right.
That's the first question.
Mr. Gatrell, if you come to the speaker here.
Just a point of clarity, who paid for the Sweco report?
Yeah.
Yeah, as I understand it, the council.
Is that the council did, or as you understand it that they did?
Well, yes.
Who did you would have had to place the order, Paul, as the head of the department that.
I didn't commission the report, but my understanding is that, yeah, we paid for that report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
right.
Mr. Gatrell.
Okay, no problem. Well, we've got that clarification then, hopefully there. The next bit's on the ecology. I'm very surprised at the local plan policy NE1, which states all development proposals should be appropriate to their nature and scale, seek opportunities to maintain and actively enhance biodiversity in order to provide net gains where possible. Now, I appreciate this isn't always easy, and a mechanism has come forth where the developer can pay a contribution and have off-site biodiversity measures in place. Now, I'm familiar with the Barrett's homes on Rosendale Road, and they have the same problem. It was only about 35,000 in that case, rather than 300,000. And yet again, they did a Section 106 agreement with the council to pay for off-site development, if you will. Now, that wasn't done in Burnley. It wasn't just off the Barrett side. It was passed across to Rosendale Council. Now, this strikes me as absolutely mad for the people of Burnley, that my kids and my grandchildren are going to be growing up where they can't find any birds, any newts, any toads, any tadpoles, like my father took me to show me, because they're all in Rosendale. We've chucked them out of Burnley. And it also goes against the local plan where it says we will track Burnley, and I can get you this one, in the 2032, it says that where will we be in 2002? And it says we're going to be a wonderful place to live. We're not if there's no birds, and there's no things, or anything like that. So, my question to the officers again, why would we move out an off-site thing outside the area? We can, people in the area should benefit from this. And if people in the area are not benefiting from this, I say to the developer, why are we charging him £300,000 for somewhere else to benefit from it? Madness. I'd rather that money came off the price of some of the houses on some of the affordable homes. They might come down to what are affordable for the people of Burnley. So that's that bit. I say there is a nice bit of spatial risk with things like that, but don't intend to go too much into that. Naturally, England recommends, this is from the local plan, recommends Burnley should have 87 hectares of local nature reserves. But Burnley, at the time of the plan, had a shortfall of 75.53 hectares, which was based on a population of 87,303 people. But the population has grown to 94,700 in the 2021 census, increasing this shortfall by a further 7.4 hectares. Have we managed to get 80 odd hectares of local nature reserve where we can put these birds, newts, and make them grow so people can see them when they're growing up, and make Burnley a wonderful place to live, rather than make Rossendale a wonderful place to live, or whether else? And just as a matter of interest, on this wonderful money-making scheme, it doesn't even have to be in the UK. They can do it in Peru, and just do some ecology things there. That's not helping the people of Burnley, and that's not what this local plan's all about. That was what it's developed for. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Councillor Chowdhury. Sorry, yeah, let officer to respond first, then I'll come back to Councillor Chowdhury. Is it Mr. Gattro coming? Oh, it's sorry. Yes, the officer, please come to the rostrum.
In terms of what I can understand from the officer report, the case officer has agreed a sum, in this case, to be spent for biodiversity net gain off-site. There is some of that is on-site, and then that can't be re-provided on-site is spent off-site, and that would form part of the negotiation of where that's spent. What's important is that it's spent where the species would benefit. So that could be in Burnley, it could be elsewhere, because the whole idea of it is to protect the species. It has to be on habitats that would be suitable for the particular species that you're aiming to protect. Now, I can't comment on what you raised about the Barrett scheme in particular, because I don't know the answer, but there are some schemes in Burnley where money would be spent jointly with other authorities in the South Pennines to protect the special protection area, which crosses boundaries. And if that's a particular bird species that needs protection, theoretically that money could be spent outside the district. You know, these things cross borders. So I'm not saying it is spent there. I don't know the answer to that. But it is spent where it's needed to facilitate biodiversity net gain. If that answers that question. Yeah. Is that the only, was there another question?
Sorry, Councillor Baker, if you can have a microphone. Thank you.
I agree with what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I not totally agree with it, but the area where they are now is perfect for them. We don't need to go anywhere else if the development doesn't go ahead, and we don't meet anyone on this one. So there's, you know, why disturb them? Let's keep them there. They've as much right to be here as we have. I mean, probably more right. They've probably been here for longer than we have. That's that one. Local nature reserves. Could you answer that one?
There has been no new local nature reserves declared since the local plan was adopted.
So we've now got 80 hectares short.
There is a shortage. That is there is an overlap with biodiversity net gain, of course, but local nature reserves are a particular thing in terms of public interaction with nature. So it is a site, local nature reserve is a site that the public can access and learn about nature. So there's an overlap, but it's not the same thing.
Okay. Could I just correct you on one thing as well? You haven't got an agreement with the developer. You have a proposed agreement with the developer, because till this development control meeting authorises you to do it, you can't enter into any sections like 106 stuff. I'm still extremely disappointed that everything seems to be going out of Burnley to make space for houses. Right, I'll move on to another item. Do you want to stick there? You can stay there, because you'll be back into this one. Right. Moving on to I'm not saying the flood risk, but the surface water drainage. And just bear with me while I whip through my notes as well and find out where this is. Right. On this, I want you to, the question is, so you can time to think about it, is having considered what I'm about to tell you before, hopefully, what were your answers to it, right? Because you didn't put it in the report, that's all I'm doing to you. Right. Now, the surface water drainage system. The foul water drainage, I've no problem with. Water comes in from United Utilities, flushes the toilets, cleans the kitchen and bathrooms, all goes out for the foul water drain system. All I'm concerned about, back to the flood risk, I'm afraid, is surface water drainage. Right. And this, if you look at the plans, all the drains lead to the... I'm calling it a pond now, but it's not. It's a basin. It's an attenuation basin rather than a pond. So pond has a different meaning. Right. If you had... Let's have a see. Go back to this bit. U-Switch claimed that the usage for cleaning a car is between 400 and 480 litres of water. So with 200 houses, 1.5 cars and 1 a week cleaning, that will mean 6.86 million litres of water will be added to the surface drainage system. In a similar way, the gardens need watering that they're going to have in summer, say for about 20 weeks of the year, and a hosepipe uses well, they say here again, this is Thameside MBC Council website, houses use 170 litres of water every 10 minutes from a hosepipe. And if you do the math again on that, 200 houses by 20 weeks, by 500 litres, that's what you'd use in about half an hour's cleaning, you need another 2 million litres, right? So we've got the effect of another 8 million litres a year going down into the subsystem. Now, when you wash your car, it's not just water. There's soaps, there's additives, there's brake dust washers off, oil, and all the other things, which will all be going into that drainage system there. What measures have you ensured that the developers put in place to clear all these things out of the system before it hits the river water covers on the outside? Okay, I'll stop at that.
Mr. Baker, yeah, let our officer respond. You can come back after, yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I'm not the case officer, so I didn't write the report. I'm not a water engineer either. So what we do when we get a planning application is we consult people who are experts. We also rely on the building regulations for some of the matters that you've issued in terms of the amount of water each dwelling is designed to use. Yeah. These things are technical standards and they have, they will be tightened over time. But we would rely on the expertise from the consultees. That's what they do for us. And if they raise an issue, then we would, address that with the developer. That's as a principle of it. But I can't answer your technical questions because I'm not the author of the report. I'm reliant on the officer having gone through all this and consulted and considered the comments made.
Yeah, Councillor Baker, you can continue.
Mr. Mayor, if I may come back, I appreciate that you're not a technical person. No, I'm not. I've only had 2 hours development control training. But surely you can see the argument. There's all sorts going down with that water. So you don't need to be really technical to say, well, what are they doing about that? What are they doing if any oil gets into water? And I remember many years ago, I'll own up to it, but I drained my oil once and poured it down just the normal sewer, which in those days was connected, which is a totally terrible thing to do. But there's nothing to stop somebody else pouring their oil, waste oil from the car, into a drain, thinking that's a normal thing to do.
I would say that would be the case on any house, on any development.
Oh, indeed, yeah. Exactly. But on modern houses, we have surface water drainage and foul water drainage. In the old days, God bless me, we only just used to have one foul water drain that took the storm drains away as well as the foul water, which is why we split it into 2, so we don't have that problem. Foul water is treated by the sewage works. But this foul water that's coming from washing cars, from garden, from weed killers, from anything in the garden that might be there that's going to drain into this open sewer system, sorry, not open sewer system, but the surface water system, could be contaminated with everything. Have you not asked any questions about contamination that might occur? Because that seems a common sense question. It's the first one that came to my mind.
Where you would go into pollution control regimes is relevant as well. And again, this is a technical matter that's been looked at through the submission and the consultation with our colleagues in environmental health and all the technical consultees. That's who we rely on to inform us on those technical matters. And I'm not aware that any issue has been identified of that nature that's peculiar to this development that needs anything other than the standard approach to these things and the conditions and the safeguards that are put in place.
I'll let you off the hook because it's cruel to come at these things. We only get these well, in this case, it must be well over 1,000-page report. 4 days I got it last Thursday before the meeting, so you don't have time to do it. You're hopefully a bit better, because at least you used to speak to the people that's left, things like that, but we should be better off. However, I would add to Councillor Birtwhistle's thing to say that we defer this till the end of winter for the groundwater report, see where the groundwater is going to rise into the attenuation basin. So it won't just be surface water, it will be a mixture of surface water and groundwater, on top of which we've also got tap water coming in through the cleaning of cars and the water and the things, all have an effect. And that will give us a chance to evaluate that thing as well. So I will be supporting Councillor Birtwhistle's thing for just to put it off till the new year, well, I think it's March or April next year, when we have a full overwinter survey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll shut up at that.
Are you seconding the motion? Yeah, Mr. Birtwhistle.
He hasn't made it yet, Mr. Mayor, I'm afraid. Sorry.
I
will second it when it comes along, and I'll vote for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Murphy. Yeah, you can go back to your seat. Yeah. Right, Councillor Chaudhry.
Mr. Mayor. First of all, I will beg to differ with my learned friend, Councillor Birtwhistle. The reason for bringing this item to the full council is not about the flooding or any other issue. The issue was that this application was a part of full plan and the policy. So we cannot go against if something is part of the planning, we cannot go against it. If I can draw your attention to page 5 of agenda item 4A, it says, prior to the vote on the resolution, the refuse to planning application, the committee was advised by the head of Housing and Development Control. So we did seek advice from the Development and Housing head, and also we seek advice from the legal, which is a bit further down, which says the committee was further advised by the senior solicitor that under the council's constitution, the committee did not have delegated power to pass a resolution to refuse, as this would be a decision that was substantially contrary to the local plan. So that was the reason that this item has been brought to the full council. Secondly, you mentioned about the flooding, and if you read the minutes about the flooding, it's been mentioned at few places. If I can draw your attention on page 7, a site-specific floods risk assessment has been carried out under the CC4. And furthermore, if you go a bit further, you will see where it's been mentioned that council did seek advice from the relevant authorities regarding the flooding or the risk of flooding. So I would recommend that we should approve this application, not refuse.
Mr. Councillor Fewing. Has he moved it? He's moved it, hasn't he? Councillor Chaudhry, did you move this application to approve, or delegation? What's your...
Point of order. I've been waiting to speak for some time. I asked questions that weren't answered, and I feel you've just encouraged someone to propose something. He said, I recommend that we don't do it. He clearly did not propose a motion, and now you are moving on to speak to me. After I've spoken, you can go back to Councillor Chowdhury, and by all means he can propose something, but please don't encourage him to propose something which he did not propose.
Councillor Fewing, yeah, you can carry on.
Thank you. I asked a number of questions to which I've not received any answers. So just to clarify what they are, the local plan, HS1-2, which is the policy for this site, clearly says there's protected priority habitat lowland fens. That went through a vigorous evaluation process when the plan was adopted and approved by an inspector. We now have two ecologists. One is the Council's Ecologist Unit, GMEU, and the other is the Developer's Report, who say that there is no priority habitat and it is basically just a bit of farmland. Those two positions conflict. Is there anything which helps us resolve that, or basically we are left with a position that we have to make up the minds ourselves? So the conditions that were referred to as answering that question do not refer to that question. My second question was, if a judicial review was successful and it was quashed, then would that count towards the numbers of major applications that were incorrectly dealt with by an authority and therefore could lead to the council being put into special measures? Please, could I have an answer to both of these questions?
Thank you, Mr. Fewing. Can I ask officer, please come to the rostrum and if you can explain. Councillor Baker, yeah, while there.
Just a point of information. This information was given to full council about 2 or 3 meetings ago,
Right.
saying at what level we were at 80% and 90%. So if that helps the officer dig that to that report, you can see where one more will take us. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Baker, for your clarification. Yeah. Yeah. Officers, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I think the conditions are relevant to answering that question. I think the conditions are on the report to seek sort of further information regarding ecology. The other thing that I would do as well is I would draw members' attention to pages 30. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Microphone.
Yeah. Yeah. Apologies. Apologies.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Conley.
Yes. So just to repeat, Mr. Mayor, I think the conditions are relevant on the application in the sense that they do seek further information on ecology to give further support to the position. I also would draw members' attention to what's on page 34 and 35 of the agenda papers, which covers the comments that came back from GMEU. I do understand the point about ecologists, and there will be different ecologists that will make various assessments. But I think the best way that I could answer the question, Chair, is to say that we've consulted on a number of occasions, Greater Manchester Ecology Unit, and the case officer has assessed the report, and the officers are satisfied that the information we've received is sufficient and covers the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Yeah.
So there was just another question from Councillor Fewings. Paul, do you just want to stay there so I can just clarify the point? I think I know the answer to what Councillor Fewings is asking, but just bear with me for a second. Yeah. He asked for the question with regards to how it would affect our statistics, which Councillor Baker was also alluding to whilst he was trying to explain. My understanding, Councillor Fewings and members, is that with regards to the statistics which we have and that we were debating on, it's when those are overturned at appeal. So when they go, so say for example, local authority makes a decision for refusal, it's appealed, and then the planning inspector overturns that decision. At that juncture, it comes into effect. Now, you asked a question with regards to judicial review. Well, judicial review, I presume you mean, are you saying that judicially reviewing the inspector's decision, or are you asking, are you judicially reviewing the council's decision? I was slightly unclear on that front, sorry.
Yeah, it's just judicially reviewing a decision that would be made this evening. I asked it in the training last Tuesday from King's Chambers, and I asked for a follow-up confirming whether this was the case. So what I would like is confirmation whether it is or is not the case. I don't think it's acceptable to ask members to make a decision tonight without absolute clarification on that matter.
Well, the clarification would be if the matter is, so are you suggesting if the matter is refused by full council? Well, if it's approved, Paul, you can answer this better, but I can't, it would only apply when it's refused and if it's overturned, isn't it? That's the juncture would apply at.
Yes, so, yeah, if a planning application is appealed, if a refusal is appealed and then the inspector overturns the refusal, then in a sense, yes, as a local authority, we are monitored on the performance of that, and there's a maximum number that is allowed in terms of that number. I think I was at the training that Councillor Fewings asked the question of the barrister, and I think if I'm correct, Councillor Fewings, are you asking the question that if a judicial review quashed the decision, that would be the same outcome?
Through you, Mayor, I'm asking the question, generally, it doesn't matter whether the application is approved or rejected, if somebody takes the route of judicial review and it results in the changing of a decision that this council makes on a planning matter, does that count toward the statistics on major applications?
I don't know the answer to that question.
But the judicial review, Councillor Fewings, I'm struggling to understand your questions, apologies, but in terms of judicial review, the judicial review would quash the decision, wouldn't it? Is that what you're suggesting? Because I'm struggling to follow the line of chain of thought.
It could do. So judicial review doesn't automatically result in, even if it's successful, in a quashing of a planning application. So it could do. But if we reject it and a judicial review is taken as well, and therefore, you know, it comes back, that can happen as well. Judicial review is not about the decision we make, it's about the process we took to come to that decision. So that's what I'm asking, is does judicial reviews resulting in, you know, a court's declaration that we made the wrong decision because we didn't follow due process, does that affect our statistics on major applications?
Adjourn the meeting, Chair.
But in terms of if it's rejected, Paul, does it come into the statistics? It's only if it's our decisions overturned on appeal. So that's the chain of thought I'm trying to get.
I mean, I can only give you an opinion on this. I have to be very clear and say that I don't know the absolute answer to that question. But my understanding of the government's performance measure is if a planning application is refused and subsequently overturned on appeal, i.e. approved. I think in the case of if it was quashed under judicial review, my expectation is that it wouldn't stand as a decision because the decision had been quashed. But I just have to caveat that and say that I don't know the absolute answer to that question.
Just one second. I've got one here, sorry. So, Councillor Townsend, it's your turn now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just say it's been really interesting debate so far, and it's been interesting reading the report and going back to last December and all the to and fro. And I must say, well done to all those who put really strong challenges in to the planning application, especially the residents who are here tonight, to make sure that there's been a full audit trail of responses to all the queries that have been raised. I'm probably not going to ask a question, but it's almost like clarification, and somebody will soon tell me if I'm wrong, because I get the nature of the debate. But just to take a few of the things that I've heard this evening, and in no particular order, you know, when I take Councillor Baker's questions around how much dirty water is going down the drains, that water is already going down the drains somewhere. They're just moving to a different part of town or from a different area into the town. It's not about new people who come in, who are being generated, but basically the people are already there and we're catering from them in a different place. Coming to the flooding, when I read the reports, and I don't actually have the page numbers in front of me, but basically what I see is that there's measures being taken which will improve the situation regarding flooding off-site. And I have been invited by residents in the past to Wilkie Avenue, etc., to see the flooding situation and try to get Lancashire County Council to do things. And when I read the report, it basically says that managing surface water will actually improve. And it actually quotes some numbers in there, and somebody might be able to say whether they're wrong or not. But it said current runoff rates are 170 litres per second, and that will be reduced through good management, retaining and controlled discharge down to 36 litres per second, which to me seems like a very good improvement, and will actually, if that can be achieved anywhere near, will improve the life of residents in that area. And also catering for the 1 in 100 year event. Also coming out of the report, I see that most groundwater deposits will be removed when the basin is actually constructed, if I read the report correct, through those peak deposits at that end of the site. So it seems like there's actually a positive coming out of this in terms of the way that the development will control some of the uncontrolled water spillage that's going on at this moment in time. Coming to some of the ecology issues that have been raised tonight, and I wasn't really prepared for this because I thought we would have been talking mostly about flooding tonight. But we talk about Councillor Baker again, with great hyperbole, tells us that all the birds and all the tadpoles and all the frogs are going to be moving out of town because of the local plan and building over all the green fields. Just to put things into context, even if all of the sites, the greenfield sites and the local plan were built on through to 2032, it would still be half of 1% of the total area of the borough that we're talking about. We're talking about extremely small areas compared. Now, I know the big areas compared to if you live in the area and everybody has a specific concern, but in the context of the borough of over 11,000 hectares, we're talking about 8 hectares here. So the birds and the tadpoles don't need to move to Rossendale. They can just move down the road into the adjoining field that's still going to be there long past 2032. So, coming on to the experts on ecology. Now, I don't know who the world-renowned expert is, but I gather from the report we had the Greater Manchester Ecology Unit, who I assume do many of these ecology-type exercises. And from what I picked up just reading through, that there are some species of interest that we do need to cater for. Skylarks were seen as the most important, I think, reading the report, but from what I could see is they only actually deemed that there was one pair of skylarks. And there has to be some balance in terms of what you're going to refuse planting on. All the rest of the species can be supported in suburban environments, it says. And one species will likely benefit from the area because of the suds and associated wetland. So it's not all bad news. Actually, there's going to be some improvement. No habitats of high value will be lost, it states. None of the habitats on site are irreplaceable, and there are no particular species issues. Yes, it's better to retain them on site if possible, but it's not grounds for an objection if off-site compensation can be provided. And what we're talking about here is, and it hasn't been discussed either, and I noticed one or two colleagues didn't mention it, we're talking about a 10% net biodiversity gain. Currently, I think legislation is less than that. There is a possibility that later this year it may go up to 10%, but what we're getting here is ahead of the legislation. And coming back to the ecology, in terms of if there are other species or there are other concerns, my understanding is there's already a condition in the report
that basically says that this has to be looked at again before commencement of the actual development. So we're covered in that respect. And I will just return to the flooding. I do think that the condition that's been added in terms of only a third of the development going ahead and then being an appraisal of the success of the basin or otherwise, I think is a positive move. And I think congratulations to the DC committee in terms of strengthening this as it's going along. And I think basically a lot of the questions that have been raised tonight have been answered by the developer over the period from last December. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Councillor Baker, then Councillor Steele, and then I'm going back over there.
Yeah, just to respond to the Councillor Townsend there, the foul water from car washing is already there. Where? It might be in a section where it's already mixed, in a mixed section where it goes from surface water to foul water, where the old ways used to be a drain, if they move from that area of town. But I would draw his attention to the section 106 thing for education, which I'm not quite sure of the number, but Lancashire County Council assume either 40% or 60% of people moving in will want schooling, and they're new to the area. So that's new stuff bringing in, so that would certainly wouldn't have been there. He then suggests, absolutely brilliantly with his knowledge of the local plan, to be fair, they can move to the adjoining field. Great, good idea. Unfortunately, we've just passed planning permission for Barrett's to build in the adjoining field, and Seddons have also got an application in for the other half of the adjoining field. How many adjoining fields do Labour work to? You know, I mean, it's a thing and the other. Right. And at no point did I mention, or as far as I know anyone else mentioned, the 10% net gain from biodiversity. Not bothered about a gain. It would be nice to see a gain, but I'm not saying a 10%, 1% would do me. But at the moment, all we're doing is getting rid of all this lot, and the people of Burnley are going to be the poorer for it. Thank you. Oh, one final thing. My colleague over here is desperate to move his substantive motion, so can we perhaps pass to Councillor Burgess or Mr Mayor?
A few more councillors asking
okay.
questions again. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I welcome the comments from fellow councillors Birtwistle, Fewings and Baker. Some really valued arguments in there, so thank you for that. In development control, we see a wide range of applications, from single-storey extensions through to developments with over 200 units, and it is only right that we have a full process of scrutiny with all of the information provided to us at those meetings to allow us to make the correct decision. In December at the first meeting, it was almost like an outline plan. We had no information on flooding, surface water, biodiversity, accessibility, and also transport planning. And so it was rightly deferred. It then took January to get some information, some piecemeal information. But we're talking about here, Mr Mayor, a development with over 200 units. And I think our residents of the borough would welcome us providing the relevant scrutiny to that. It's not a single-storey extension. In March, we were then presented with an expert report from the council, which contradicted the residents' report. And I've got to say, I, as a member of DC, was feeling deeply uncomfortable about that. What were we doing? Playing engineer top trumps to come to our decision. Deeply uncomfortable to make a decision on 200 units based on our expert report trumps your expert report. And I feel that that for me is the biggest bone of contention. So I would welcome an amendment to defer this until we have got the relevant information at the necessary time of year over winter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Steele. Councillor Conley.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I welcome all comments, and particularly the fact that the last comment was really interesting, I think, because Councillor started to look at setting the scene of why we're actually here. And just to go through that again, so it is clear in the room why we're actually here. And we've got 4 choices in front of us tonight. We're either going to refuse this, or we're going to accept it in full council, or we're going to defer it, as you just mentioned then, or we can refer it back to DC. And this was the initial statement that was made by Councillor Birdsall, the first person to stand up and speak tonight. And this is the one that I am really in support of, to refer it back to DC, because that's where it belongs. That's where this decision deserves to be made. It's where this decision was made in the first place, and it deserves to be referred back to there, to be made again in DC. So that's what I support for this. Now, I want to touch on a few other issues. Firstly, the SWECO report, the infamous SWECO report that's been referred to tonight, which was, say, a rebuttal to the AEA report, which was the one, I believe, that was commissioned by the residents and was brought before us. And the SWECO report, in its findings, it said there was not a significant constraint on the risk of flooding. I don't know what that really means. So there is a constraint on it, but it's not significant. That's what I read it as. So there is, which is similar to what, if I'm reading it right, and this is why it needs clarity, it's similar to what the report commissioned by the residents said, that there is going to be constraints on this. There's a concern, there's worried. The SWECO report says it's not significant. I think we've cleared up who paid for that. I'm not really sure exactly, because one said that the side did say that they commissioned it, but the other side said they paid for it. I'm not really sure on that, whether that's who's really pushed that report through. To add to the confusion, and this is why, just to underline what was said by the previous speaker, underlying that, this is why it's so important. We can't take these for granted on 200 houses on green space. Ecology, I go on to ecology, it's been mentioned already, but I think I want to raise one thing that's not been raised so far, and it's something in ecology that's held with ecological value in very high, or at least high distinctiveness. And it's not something that's going to fly off. It's not something that's going to sort of emerge in Rosendale, as Councillor Baker's referring to. It's the peat, for Pete's sake. It's the peat. So this attenuation tank that we're talking about, this pond, is going to remove, it openly says it's going to remove all the peat. So if we're referring back to reports to the past, ecological reports, surely, along with the current government and previous governments, peat will be, you won't be able to sell peat soon. This is how high significance it is ecologically, but they're quite clear we want to remove it. So I want some clarity on that peat issue and that being removed. And I don't think ecology and all these issues of flooding and going on to flooding now can be put down to a 100-year storm. Perhaps if members would actually like to come to the carbon literacy training, they might understand a little bit more beyond the 100-year storms and rainwater and the increase of as we go forward, and why it's important for these big housing ventures have got to be future-proofed. And we've got to be concerned that they're not future-proofed if they're saying that they are. So when we're talking about also enforcement on these conditions, and this is something that irks me a little bit, and why it's quite difficult to, when we're saying, oh, let's leave it down to conditions, we've spent half of the day today looking at conditions, breaches of conditions on another housing project in my ward, where the infamous ecology unit from Manchester overlooked the fact that there was actually lapwings nesting birds on the land. They overlooked that fact, and now these bulldozers bulldozing over that, even though they said they would wait till the end of the nesting season, even though it was conditioned that they wouldn't touch it till the end of nesting season. But still they bulldozed through today. I've sent the reports through. So this is why when we conditions are fine, but enforcement of those conditions, that the developers do what they say in these areas, is really important. I just wanted to stress that point. So just to clarify, I've got a couple of questions. The first one on clarifying over that issue of significant constraint and what it means in the SWECO report, and also a question to officers on peat and what they're looking into this, because sincerely there's massive ecological value on peat, so you can just refer to that. But my opinion, just going back, is that this should go back to DC where it belongs.
Councillor Fewing, the next.
Thank you, Matt. So I just want to pick up on a few things Councillor Townsend said. No doubt someone will say that I'm wrong, and I'm sure he was referring to me. And it's not for any political or personal reason that I think he's wrong. It's just a matter of fact. And that is that biodiversity net gain has nothing to do with priority habitat for species. You can put in 50% biodiversity net gain, but if you destroy priority habitat, you cannot mitigate against that with 50% net gain for general biodiversity, which is important, but it's a separate point. So I am very concerned. I don't feel I can approve this planning application. We've just heard about peat being dug out for the attenuation tanks, and that's very shocking. So again, I don't think, but I'm happy for evidence to be provided that we've had full peat surveys and confirmation that this will not detract away from climate mitigation. But I would like, when Councillor Birtwistle proposes his motion to defer for overwinter flooding assessment, to include a full breeding bird survey assessment, because as I said at the beginning, the ecology report only surveyed birds in April and May, and skylark breeding season runs from April to August. So August, June and July has no surveys. You cannot condition that because it is a protected species, and the overall harm is such that we should have the information in front of us before we make this decision. So I don't agree it can be conditioned. There are legal requirements for when a condition can be put in place, and I don't believe they're met. So for that reason, I would please ask Councillor Birtwistle to include in his proposal a delay to the end of the breeding season, which is mid-August 2024, and I would then feel able to support the proposal. The reason why I don't think we should be passing this is that a judicial review would be successful because we do not have the correct information before us, and I'm sure Councillor Cunliffe would want to see proper peat surveys in that process too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fewing. Next is Councillor Birtwistle.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to rise to propose that we defer this decision back to DC following an overwinter survey on the site, with the results of the overwinter survey presented to the residents' expert for consideration, to the council's expert for consideration, and then then the decision can be made. I accept also, and I would like that included, for a full survey of what will happen regarding the removal of vast amount of peat, which is totally against the council's policy. In fact, we actually employ a climate change officer. So I would like a report from them to be included, and also what Councillor Fewing said about further bird surveys. But my main reason, and the reason why it came here, was because I would like the council to agree to it, and I don't know whether the developer will agree to this. I mean, if he doesn't do, then there's nothing much we can do about it. He'll have to wait for the decision to be made by the inspector. But I will wish that he will work with the council, do an overwinter survey, and if the overwinter survey shows that there is no problems at all, then we will have to accept the result, much to my regret, but we would have to accept the result and the DC committee could then approve it correctly with the correct information and with the residents who are sat here this evening confident that their expert has concurred with the experts that are working for the council, that the facts will be correct and we'll be able to move on and either get on with it or not get on with it. At the moment, they have this cloud hanging over them that they need lifting from them, and we need to get this done properly. We're here to represent the residents. I'm representing the residents. I'm not and I know the developer had a meeting at the golf club. I went. I didn't get involved because I'm not allowed to do. He had a meeting with them and he's had conversations with a couple of the residents since. I hope that he will accept our view tonight, understand the views of the residents who will live there many, many years and agree to accept that the review will put the residents' mind at rest and we can move forward in the correct manner and we can all work together happily ever after. So I move, Mr. Mayor, that this is referred back to the DC committee with the full report, when the full report of the overwinter survey is available and shared with the experts, and that the additional bits regarding to the climate change by the removal of the peat, a report on that, and a further report on on what Councillor Fewing's concerns are included in that report that comes after the overwinter survey. I so move that, Mr. Mayor, and I hope the council will support that. Thank you.
All right. Can I ask a second or ask the other members as well?
Yes, there's a motion to, we need a second.
Yeah.
But before we go into that, so just for clarity, Councillor Birtwistle, so that we just get this correct for the purpose of the minute, and Mike also needs sort of some assistance from Councillors Cunliffe and Fewings here as well. I'm just trying to sort of clarify for members what motion's been moved. So Councillor Birtwistle has moved to defer the matter to the Development Control Committee when the full report of the overwinter survey, the further report on peat, is it a further report on peat? On the removal, on the climate change effect of removing... Climate change. The climate change effect by the removal of the peat. And the ecological, the extra parts of the ecological survey that Councillor Fewing is concerned about. The main thrust is to put the residents' minds at rest regarding... I'm just trying to clarify what the motion says. So I'll just read that out so that we've just got clarity, yeah, okay. if members are okay. So Councillor Birtwistle has moved to defer the matter to Development Control Committee when the full report of the overwinter survey, the further report on climate change, on the climate change effect of the removal of peat, and further ecological survey relating to the full nesting of birds is available. And the report on the overwinter survey is shared with the experts on both sides of the argument and agreed.
I think Councillor Cunliffe just add on some more.
So what was the last one? And the results? Sorry, there's something else I did. Sorry. Well, my argument is related initially to the flood risk, that we refer this meeting back to DC for I've lost my thought there. For a decision following the overwinter survey on the flooding risk, when the figures are available to be given to the expert acting on behalf of the resident and the expert acting on behalf of the council for a decision, and then we will all know the results. Added to that, and that relates to the flooding, adding to that, there's a request from Councillor Cunliffe for some information on the climate change issues with the removal of the peat out of the field, and there's a further issue we'd like a report on that, but that is additional to the main thrust of the motion, and there's a request from Councillor Fewings regarding further ecological studies on the nesting birds.
But the main thrust is
Sorry,
about
again,
the-
so I'll try and summarise that in the on the mail.
I'm sure that the recording on there will...
Well, we need to be clear because
what we voted on.
you've said we just need to be sort of quite accurate as well. Just one thing I just want to add is you did suggest that if both experts agree, but they might not be able to agree, so I don't know whether or not you want that in the motion.
That would have to be a decision then of DC.
Yeah, so that's what I want to clarify. So, Councillor Birtwistle, so you're moving a motion or you've moved the motion to defer the matter to Development Control Committee when the full report of the overwinter survey, further report of the climate change effect of the removal of peat, and further ecological survey relating to the full nesting of birds is available, and those reports are considered by the relevant experts.
Okay, that's fine. Yes.
So is that the motion you're moving?
Well,
Yeah, yes.
The main
So
thrust...
it's not, yes, sorry, yes or no?
No, it's
so
not.
Is it not?
The
Sorry.
motion, there's been two bits added on. The main motion is to defer this and refer it back to DC following the results of the overwinter survey.
I've said
the figures. No, but now at this point, the results of that survey have to be submitted to the experts on both sides of the fence, and then we know what we're going on. When they've done that, we're asking for, while this is happening on the overwinter survey, which is the most important part of this, could a report come to DC, additional to that, to explain to the DC members what the effect on the peat removal will be, and a further study on the birds. These are things that have been added on. They are not part of the... They're addendums to the...
So shall we deal with those as amendments then? Because because you added them as your motion. So if they want to be added on as amendments afterwards... So and I have said about the relevant experts. I'm just trying to sort of add clarity here.
It's the relevant experts on the flooding issue, not experts on peat or birds. It is on the flooding issue. That is the issue that is affecting the residents of the...
I think I've got it now. So Councillor Birtwistle has moved to defer the matter to Development Control Committee when the full report of the overwinter survey is considered...
On flooding, the overwinter survey on flooding.
On flooding.
Surface water.
So that's something else.
No, on the flooding risk.
On flooding.
Flooding risk, yes.
So Councillor Birtwistle has moved to defer the matter to Development Control Committee when the full report of the overwinter survey on flooding is considered by the relevant flooding experts.
Yeah, the results...
For both...
The results are studied then.
Yeah, so the results are studied by the relevant flooding experts, as well as a further report on the climate change effect on the removal of peat and further ecological survey on the full nesting of birds is available.
Yes.
That is your right.
Is that your motion? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
If anyone wants to amend that, they can.
Can I ask Councillor Conlon if he's been there for a long time?
No. We need to go. Sorry, just for the benefit, so that we can progress the, so we can progress the meeting.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to amend that, there's the ability to do it afterwards, if necessary. But we have to take one motion at a time. We can't amend.
Mr. Mayor, I so move that.
Yeah. So,
Councillor Baker will happily
second. Is there any seconder?
Happily second that, apparently. Yes.
Right.
Second that.
Motion
Thank you,
is...
Mr. Mayor.
We're not here to decide whether we should go back or not. It's up to this council.
Councillor Chowdhury, please sit down. The motion is being moved and seconded. Let's deal with that motion first.
You didn't move.
It's different than your motion here.
You didn't move.
He added a few more things. Mr. Chowdhury, please sit down here.
Is it worth us just reading it out one more time for clarity?
Yeah, I think, yeah. So, Office is going to read again.
So you are very clear.
And then.
So I've been asked to sort of read it out again. Apologies if I'm not going to be able to read it out verbatim, so I'm going to have to write it down again so that I'm absolutely clear, because it's just bear with me.
Yeah. Councillor Anwar.
Thank you. Just a point to it. I just want to check. So, constitutionally, does the Constitution allow for something to be deferred from a committee and referred here to this council, and then for us to defer it back? Does the Constitution allow? Because that's what my understanding is that's what the obviously what's been moved, the motion that's been moved is asking for. Just wanted to check that so all members are clear that. And then if it does go there, will it become an issue of a ping pong between the committee and full council and keep something that keeps going from one to the other? I think we just need a bit of clarity on that.
Yeah,
Good.
You'll get your answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Just 1 second.
Point of information, Mr. Mayor. In relation to that question for Councillor Anwar, we had an application which sets precedent here where it was referred to full council. That was the Redleys Road application, and then it was referred back to Development and Control. So hopefully this council did not act outside of the Constitution on that occasion.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Fearing. Yeah, please be patient. Yeah, just write it out in clarity that, that everyone understands.
So I've just been asked by the Chief Exec and Mr. Mayor just to clarify the extent of the motion that Councillor Birtwistle proposed. Apologies if I've sort of misinterpreted, but Councillor Birtwistle has moved to defer the matter to Development Control Committee until the full report of the overwinter survey on flooding has been considered, so has been received and considered by the relevant experts on the flooding, together with a further report on the climate change effect of the removal of peat and further ecological survey relating to the nestings of, full nesting of birds is available.
Yes. Councillor Birtwistle want to add?
Yeah. So we just got a couple of questions.
Yeah. You want to answer that? Oh, no.
Just bear with me.
Members, please, I have got advice that if we can adjourn this meeting for 10 minutes and then, with more clarifications, then we'll come back again, and then we can debate or move on the motion.
Moved and seconded.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded.
You need to move the motion without notice.
Right, I'm going to move this motion that we're going to adjourn this meeting for 10 minutes. Yeah.
I'll second that.
No, your motion is there.
I just want to sort of get clarification on the legal point. I can do it. I can. If members want.
No, can I give you one more? No, you didn't. You didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Move the adjournment.
Yeah. So.
Well, if they don't want to sort of move the adjournment, then I can just get clarification.
Yes, we can sit here until, give us a couple of minutes here, get some clarification.
Sort of look into.
Oh.
With permission, I'll second what you just suggested, because I think in all honesty, we need 10 minutes to clear things up a bit, and I think we could all do with a break as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, yeah. I think you deserve that.
So,
Yes,
can
so-
we to vote for the adjournment termination?
So can we vote all those in favor of this adjournment? 10 minutes adjournment here. Anyone against? Yeah. Any abstentions? Yes, motion carried.
Members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding. Thank you. Members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding to receive the Worshipful Mayor of Burnley, Councillor Arif Khan. Thank you.
Please be seated.
With your permission, Mr. Mayor, in relation to the question posed by Councillor Anwar, whether or not the matter can be deferred back to the Development Control Committee, I can't see any prohibition in the Constitution, although there may be other issues like in terms of non-determination of planning application, which Paul might, I don't know where we are in terms of the time frames that you might want to advise on, but I can't see there being any prohibitions in the Constitution preventing it from being deferred back to the Development Control Committee. Paul, do you want to come in on? I don't know where we are on the.
Sorry, can you just clarify that?
Timeframes of determining planning applications, can you clarify that for members?
Oh, it was a 13-week application, yeah.
And where are we at in terms of extensions? That's what I meant, sorry.
I haven't calculated it, but we're way past the 13 weeks, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, if I could also just a clarification, there was a question asked regarding the payment, who paid for the SWECO report, and it's now been confirmed that the developer did pay for that. So just for clarity.
Okay, we are going back to the debate. Councillor Birtwistle, you moved and it's been seconded by Councillor Baker, but it's only fair because I've got quite a few other members want to speak on this issue. For the transparency of our system and the democracy, I want to allow other members to speak on the issue as well, please. So the next one is Mr. Chowdhury. Please, Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I would like to move.
No, we can't.
No. Yeah, I've got point of order coming. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. I tried to explain to Councillor Chowdhury before. We have your motion, which wasn't a motion. We were just discussing proposing a motion, so we didn't get very far and do it. Councillor Birtwistle has since moved a motion. It has been seconded. Yeah. That now becomes what is called a substantive motion. Yeah. We can debate that if the members require it, but we take a vote on that, and then at the end of that vote, if it fails, we come back to your bit. You can put your bit in. I'm sorry, this is all your job, sorry, Chief. Yeah.
I was going to Councillor Baker. All Councillor Chowdhury said, I'm going to move. He could have moved that we all go home. Yeah. But in all fairness, you raised a point of order, and I didn't want to be rude and interrupt.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Baker. Yeah. So, Mr. Chowdhury, you want to say anything or anything different than your...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said, that now I would like to formally move the motion.
Again?
To do what? So to do what?
Why can't I? Why can't I?
I don't know what you want to move, Councillor Chowdhury. If you want to move that we adjourn again, you can move. But if you want to move something which is different apart from deferring the planning application,
yes,
if it's different, you can't do that because it's already the deferral has already been moved.
Okay, thank you.
Right. I wrote Councillor Brindle want to say anything. You want to contribute something, please? Yes, stand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've listened to all the comments, tried to apply them fairly, but in a rather ironic way when we talk about skylarks and other breeding birds, if anybody here would like to hear a bird, a curlew or a wop as it's commonly known, and any other songbirds, all they have to do is to go down St James's Street into the Market Square, where they have on the wall piped bird song. Are we so short of birds in Burnley that we have to have, well, bird music piped to us as we shop? Because if that's the case, then we must say that any wild area in this borough needs to be preserved for wildlife, particularly birds. There's a list in this report of many birds which over the years have decreased in their numbers, particularly starlings, as we all know, although I have seen starling murmurations over the town hall. But with regard to other matters, on Manchester Road, there is a small street called Hoodhouse Street. And if you go back in the history books, you'll find that that refers to an area where there was flooding and a great amount of egress into Scott Park. And also, when we have heavy rain, there is a lot of flooding. But the point that I want to make is that after the Padiham floods, LCC provided a report to all the county councillors in, I think it was 2016, and I was a recipient of that report. Unfortunately, it was strictly confidential. It couldn't be forwarded, emailed, copied, or in any way made public. And it concerned the areas of Briarcliff, Rose Hill, and parts of Coldclough. I would like to know if anybody at Burnley Council is aware of that report and if they've taken any due diligence with regard to the outcome of that report. Unfortunately, I can't give you details because, as I say, it was strict confidence and it's so long ago now that I can't remember. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brindle. Next one, Councillor Anwar. Are you still there? Are you okay there? Councillor Fewing.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to move what I consider to be a friendly amendment to the motion. It's just to clarify that I don't know why you're shaking your head, Deputy Mayor, but I'm allowed to do that.
Carry on, Councillor Fewing, what do you want to say?
I'd like to move a friendly amendment to the motion. I had my hand up and I wanted to talk about it before, but I was ignored, and now I'm having to make a friendly amendment. So the friendly amendment is in relation to the point about birds, is to say that we should be provided with a report for the full breeding season of protected species on the site, and that report should clarify whether the priority habitat lowland fens as per policy HS1/2 is present or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Conliffe, you want to say anything any more?
Second my amendment.
Yeah. So I'm coming to
Thank you.
Councillor McGovern now.
I had also had my hand up before we brought for arrest. Yeah, just a slight amendment to the issue on Pete. What I'd actually put
So we
forward.
can only take one amendment at a time.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
So come back to me after.
So I thought you were seconding Councillor Fewing's amendment.
I am quite happy to second Councillor Fewing's amendment as well, but you can come back to my amendment afterwards. Fine.
You can merge them if you want as well, but before you seconds it.
So your wordings can...
Do you want me to merge it then?
Yeah, that's what we're coming to next. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're
fine.
seconding that,
So I'm seconding that, but I also have a.
and we'll come back to you after.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay.
So if you go.
So,
I've got Councillor McGovern.
Council, just ask Councillor Burtwhistle if he's happy. Yeah, with the meeting and the seconder.
Because an amendment is an alteration, it's different.
But he's altering his original motion. So we're asking, he's moved an amendment.
Yeah, so
we're asking if he's happy to alter.
Yeah.
So rather than an amendment, if you withdraw that and you want to move an alteration, which Councillor Birtwistle has indicated he'd be happy to accept, that would be an easier way to deal with it.
I so remove and propose.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And seconded. Yeah. Councillor Cunliffe seconded.
And then it has to be with the consent of the mover and seconder of the original motion, which is Councillors Birtwistle and Baker accordingly.
I am happy to agree to that.
Thank you.
My colleague also is happy.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can't speak on his behalf, so you'd have to formally do it. Yeah. So, Blake, can you give Councillor Baker the mic?
Yeah. What, from
I
your mouth?
felt Councillor Birtwistle's hand up my back then. But yes, I'm happy to second that, Mr Mayor.
So I've got Councillor McGowan.
Yes.
Okay.
So that forms part of the motion. I hope Democracy colleagues have written it down because I can't write that fast. And then I think there's a further alteration, I presume, from Councillor Cunliffe.
Right. Councillor Cunliffe, you want to add something else? Or?
Yes, if the original proposal and seconder agree, I want to alter or just make an addition on the peat issues, that it was actually not just for climate change, but for the effect on ecology as well as climate change. So it's just a one word or addition, if that's fine.
So,
yeah, Councillor. And second, you got a second? No, once, it's an easy seconder. Yeah.
I second that.
Councillor Fury,
Yeah, we know.
Can I ask?
We're nearly there.
Yeah, there, you're coming to you. Yeah. Councillor Birtwistle, yeah.
I am happy to accept that, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
And my colleague will...
Councillor Baker?
Second, happy to accept that as well.
No. I've got Councillor McGowan, for long, you know, sorry.
It just needs to, so it's just all those,
All those in favour?
All those in favour, please.
Yeah. All those in favour of that motion, please show.
No,
not yet.
Sorry, weren't we speaking on this motion? Is that not?
No, in terms of just the alteration.
Alteration,
Just for the alteration, to clarify, it's not for the favour of the motion. It's
Yeah, from Councillor Cunliffe and Councillor Fewing, yeah, so we added few more items, yeah, so to make sure, yeah. Do you want to read out?
No, I don't want to read out.
Yes.
Are members happy to accept?
Happy to accept
The altered motion.
Okay. Yeah. So shall we?
Councillor McGowan.
Sorry, Councillor McGowan, it's your turn now. Keep coming back.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Finally, I've got the microphone. It's taken about 15 minutes. No, I mean, normally council meetings don't function like this. I've never been in a council meeting which has taken so long, so much process has been spoken about. So I just wanted to get back to the basic issues that I see as a councillor sat here being asked to make a decision which is normally taken at development control. I wanted to speak on the motion that Councillor Birtwistle had put. Overall, I think it's quite sensible. See, I'm normally known as a bit of an opinionated person. I think with the local plan especially, that's well known. I've spoken before in the council about how it doesn't meet the needs of residents on a number of levels. I think what we're seeing with this proposal is just a continuation of that. The decision should have been taken in DC. Should be taken in DC, should I say? I think it's a bit strange for full council to take it. I understand all the things that are coming into play. The officers worrying about emergency measures with the council. And I understand the residents when they talk about potential flooding risks that they have. But for me, getting the 124, 125 page pack the other day and having a read through it, front to back, basically I'm being asked, do I believe one expert or do I believe another expert? And to me, that's a really difficult decision for me to take. A, having not sat on DC and listened to the full level of debate, and B, whilst this meeting has lasted a few hours already, and we've gone into some serious detail, even with Councillor Baker talking about his fascination with water drains and things like that, it's still not got to the nub of it for me. Which expert should be believed when it comes to this flooding report, which is why it leads me to think that for the peace of mind of residents there, and I'm all for the residents, that's what I always go with the residents I represent in Haptonwood Park. When it comes to planning decisions, I think the residents should always have a say, always have an input on it. So for their peace of mind, I would actually be in support of the motion for this to go back to DC, because I don't think this is the right forum to properly discuss it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McGovern. Any other members want to contribute? Councillor John Harbour.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some of the points what have been raised tonight, and I think we should have balance there as well. Councillor Birtwistle said earlier about the developer working with us. And I think in all fairness, the developer has been working with us for over 2 years now on this application. It's been to committee 3 times, and there's a suggestion going there it's going to go back a 4th time. Members will make that decision, but I think, as I say, as a point of fairness, that developer has worked with us for a long time on this. Regarding flooding issues, etc., I appreciate I'm no expert, but the report clearly states to me that this has been looked at seriously. It's been looked at by the Environment Agency, by the local flood authority, etc., and they've come back and basically, in my eyes, there's no reason there for refusal or to send it back. I appreciate other colleagues might think differently on that. But again, when we talk about we're here in the interest of residents, that's quite right. But we're also here when we make decisions on planning, and with respect to residents who are sat there, it's not just about local residents. We're here to respect the borough-wide residents and what views are being talked about, what decisions are being made. And I'd just like to remind colleagues that, again, it's important to these residents, but an application like this, as I understood it, only 5 letters of objection came in. Now, those objections might be sound, and I've no problem with that, but let's not get carried away that we're only here tonight, or in any planning committee, on any decision, just to represent a small number of residents. We're here to make decisions on a borough-wide issues. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Harbour. I'm going to vote. Councillor Lewis here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just sort of wanted to clarify some points that, from what I read from the report and what I understood from it. Obviously, like a lot of us, I've not had loads of training in DC apart from what we've had recently to cover things off. And I don't sit on DC either, unlike some other councillors, and I respect their experience. But from what I took from the report, the residents' report that they brought forward, the experts they used, in terms of the flooding, it didn't say there was an increased risk of flooding. What I understood from that is they couldn't rule it out. Now, there's plenty of times that someone's not going to say they can rule something, they're not going to say they're going to rule something out in any circumstances, because then there's potentially a legal challenge if the, act of God happens and flooding does happen. The experts have then looked into it. We've got this further reports have been commissioned, those have been looked into, and the risk of flooding is negligible, and by all accounts the development is going to even reduce the risk of flooding even further. So it seems to me by passing this back to DC, all we're doing is kicking the can down the road, and we're going to end up in exactly the same position as we would do anyway in terms of reports on flooding, because I can't see that anything is going to change, whether it be winter or not winter. If we're reducing the risk of flooding on the site, how on earth is, whether it's at winter or not winter, is that going to make any difference? I can't understand it, but there you go.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other member? Looks like we had a good, healthy debate this evening. And the motion is being moved and seconded, and everyone got the opportunity to contribute. And so, are we going for the votes now? Yeah? Are you going to read those? 1 second, please.
I think just for clarity, what I'm just going to do is type up for the Mayor what we're voting on at this moment in time, and so the Mayor can read it out for the purposes of the, for the meeting, so there's no disagreement. You can have a named vote. There's a process for the named vote. You can do that whilst...
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
So, do you want to go through that?
Mm-hmm. It needs to be moved by the meeting.
Yes.
Top of page 10.
Yeah. Sorry.
Next page.
Yeah. I got it.
You can do that now if you want.
Yeah. Members, please, a recorded vote has been requested in line with the CPR 16.4. Is that seconded?
I'll stand up as well. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Would all members stand if they are able or clearly indicate their support for a recorded vote being held? Yeah. Yes, I'm happy with the response. Yeah, we'll go for the recorded vote.
Just for Councillors Fewings, Cunliffe and Burgess and Baker, if I misquoted you, please can you just clarify before the Mayor reads out formally? But I've just got the motion as altered and accepted by as altered by Councillors Fewings and Cunliffe, and accepted by Councillors Birtwistle and Baker, as follows: to defer the matter to the Development Control Committee until the full report of the overwinter survey on flooding has been received and considered by the relevant experts on the flooding, together with a further report on the ecological and climate change effect on peat. And Councillor Fewings, I think probably need a bit of clarification on yours, and a further ecological survey relevant to the nesting of birds through the whole breeding season of protected species, and clarification on whether lowland fence habitat is available.
Yeah, Councillor Cunliffe, yeah, you want to add something?
It should be on the removal of peat. The ecological and climate change effects on the of the removal of peat. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunliffe. Councillor Fewings, did I sort of... Yes, fine. Thank you very much. So I'll just hand over to the, Mr. Mayor just to read that out for the purposes of the council procedure.
I need some glasses here. Right, members, yeah, the motion I'm going to read as it is Councillor Birtwistle has moved as altered by Councillor Fewing and Councillor Cunliffe, and seconded by Councillor Baker. Both alterations accepted. To defer the matter to the DC committee until the full report of the overwinter survey on flooding has been received and considered by the relevant experts on the flooding, together with a further report on the ecological and climate change effect of the removal of peat, and a further ecological survey relevant to the nesting of birds through the whole breeding season of protected species, and clarification on whether lowland fence habitat is available. Is that clear? Okay. Right. So we are, as it's been moved and seconded, so we are going for the named votes here. So,
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, members, so to be very clear, so we're voting on that proposal. Councillor Anwar. Councillor Ashworth. Councillor Baker. Councillor Birtwistle. Councillor Bridges. Councillor Briggs. Councillor Brindle. Councillor Broughton. Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Cunliffe. Councillor Fewings. Councillor Harbour. Councillor Horrocks. Councillor Hughes. Councillor Hurt. Councillor Hussain.
For.
Councillor Inkle. Councillor Ingham. Councillor Ishtiak. Councillor Kazmi. Sorry, yeah, Councillor Nusrat Kazmi, yeah. Councillor Sahida Kazmi. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Arif Khan.
For.
Councillor Lubna Khan. Councillor Alan Lewis. Councillor Serish Lone. Councillor Jamie McGowan. Councillor Neil Mottishead. Oh, no, sorry, Neil's not here. No. Councillor Asif Raja. Has he gone? Yeah. Councillor Paul Reynolds. Councillor Christine Solis. Councillor Mike Steele. Councillor Jeff Sumner. Councillor Mark Townsend. Councillor Don Whittaker. Councillor Fiona Wilde. Councillor Andy White.
Right. The motion is carried. The next item, go on this one. Item 5, the questions. Any questions?
None have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the business for tonight. But before you go, I would like to thank all the members and officers, and especially the residents for spending time with us. So thank you so much. Have a safe journey home.
Members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding. Thank you.